This is Leonard Krim, and he collects porcelain figures of Sybil Shepherd and rubber moulds of Tom Selleck. After 5 years of trying to find a porcelain rubber hybrid model made in Minsk in 1992 of a Sybil Selleck, a mythical creature with huge wings, 2 heads, claws as big as an average-sized wheelbarrow, and a mustache you could smuggle whole live lobsters in, he thinks, finally, he's found it. This week on Perky, we follow Leonard. We find out what trousers he wears. We meet the women who have loved him, the dogs that have spurned him, and the old Irish gentleman at number 24 who, for some reason, keeps looking at him funny. We follow the highs and lows of Leonard's confusing medical history, where a mild case of athlete's foot turned out to be mostly just in his tiny mind, and a life-threatening case of halitosis, which was in fact very real, but Leonard refused to acknowledge despite numerous pleas by the clergy, co-workers in his low-rent hat warehouse, and even a disgraced MP. Will Leonard get the prize he seeks, or is this just another excuse to waste time, sell you dangerous legal drugs you don't need for ailments you don't have, and fill space because you greedy bastards demand 24/7 programming, and repeats of What's All This Then starring Basil Plumcake just doesn't cut the mustard anymore, does it? Talking of wastes of your time, here's the after-movie diner. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the After Movie Diner.
See, I like that as an intro. That's good.
That's better. You
Yeah.
prefer that intro to
Yep.
you? Okay, and we're back. It's Jim and I again. We're
Hello.
out in a diner again, and this time we had the play. Oh, anyone who watched the behind-the-scenes video, which we're now doing every time we go out, will
Exclusive
know.
footage.
Will know what film we went to see. But we went to see Cell.
Yes, we did.
Stephen King adaptation starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson, playing at the Cinema Village, just south of Union Square.
Yes, which hopefully got cut out of the video, and if it didn't, I'm sorry.
Which bit?
The bit where you went on and on about the geography of exactly where we were.
Oh, right, yeah, no.
It went on for about a day,
I'll probably leave that in.
Yeah, probably leave that.
I'll probably
Leave it in?
Leave it in.
Why would you want to leave it in?
Because people love that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. Me trying to remember
But I'm
names.
people, and I don't.
I know, but you're not actual people.
Right. You're saying I'm different from people.
You're different from people. So we went to see Cell, and we'll be talking about that in a minute. The cinema in question, Cinema Village, utterly bonkers. So
There was a moment when we were watching the film about halfway through where we turned to each other and said, is everybody in the cinema apart from us insane?
Yeah.
Because there were only 4 other people in the cinema, and 3 of them were definitely insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because one of them was a bag lady, one of them was the really tall, he looked like a Stephen King character, he was really tall, had a cane, and was like difficulty getting up the stairs, and then you saying he muttered, I didn't catch any muttering.
Okay, so let's start. First of all, the 2 12-year-olds running the theatre went behind the screen, because this was a back-projected screen rather than a normal front projection. They went behind the screen before the film even started and had a
huge
loud,
row,
protracted row that we could hear, but that was sort of a passive-aggressive, like, I know I screwed up, but I'm not going to admit it.
I
Screwed up. And the other one is like, I'm too young to be disciplining this guy, but he's clearly an idiot. And the whole thing was just hilarity. And we thought maybe we just wouldn't get to see the film.
There was
We thought maybe they'd just taken our $30 and gone, whatever.
That was that.
So that's how it started.
Yes. Right.
Then, just as the lights went off, muttery cane man wandered up the stairs, and I legitimately thought he was about to do a Burton and fall backwards, because there was no way he could see what he was doing at all. He finally found his seat, but by muttering, what I mean is a set piece would happen, right? And we can go into what that entails in a minute. But a set piece in a movie, whether it's an action beat or a horror beat or whatever.
You mean during Cell?
During the Cell, yeah. And then after it had all calmed down, he would be like, yeah, they all got killed, didn't they? Yeah, they got killed. Yeah, no, I thought that might happen. Yeah. And he was just muttering about what had just happened.
Oh wow, I missed that totally.
Yeah. which was completely.
There was a guy, but the guy at the end of the row to us was making weird noises. And I realised it's because he was like playing with his umbrella.
He was playing with a whole bunch of stuff, but also he was a grown man with a big beard and everything who seemed to have a laugh like a childish girl, which added to the horror of everything.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Because there were some moments in the movie that were both like played for laughs and also were just like hilarious.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get onto that in a minute. But yes, we're ready.
Yeah. What do you want?
Yeah, can I get 2 eggs over easy with ham? And can I get that with fries, please?
White toast?
Sure.
Can I get a bowl of chili? Beef chili with crackers, and I'll get melted cheese, actually. No rice, just chili, the crackers, and the cheese. So, and can I get a chamomile tea?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll stick with water. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
So there were moments that, like, necessitated a little giggle, let's just say, a mild guffaw. And from the end of the aisle that we were on, not that you could really call it an aisle because it was 4 badly positioned seats.
God, they were uncomfortable, those seats.
They were uncomfortable in the tiniest theatre we've ever been. I thought the one downstairs was tiny, but this was even smaller. And it was really bizarrely laid out.
Yeah, it was so strange.
It was almost the most perfect place to watch this film because it did just feel all unnerving in the whole way.
Yeah, it was.
So at the end of our row, and in fact, occasionally you would hear rustling interspersed with and I was like, what is that? That sounded it sounded like it was that movie Basket Case, and maybe in the bags, instead of having umbrellas, what he actually had was like a mutated globule of a twin brother who occasionally laughed at him and maybe like undermined him.
But that wouldn't have been totally
out of place. No, that would have been
acceptable. Under
acceptable.
the circumstances, given especially since the whole movie is like 2 blokes are in the middle of thank you very much. They're in the middle of a mad world where everyone around them has gone insane.
Yeah.
So really, about halfway through this movie, that you're 2 sitting in the middle of the cinema, where everyone around you, you're pretty sure
is bonkers. Yeah, there was one guy behind us who I think
it was just a really unnerving because the cinema, it was cold.
Yeah.
It was really weirdly designed, so the whole thing was like funneled towards this screen that was, even though we were quite near the front of the seats, was really far
Not
away.
only that, but all the seats were sloping forward.
It was like a dream sequence of a cinema.
It was.
That's exactly what it was like. It was like going to the cinema in a dream sequence from like a 90s movie.
Yeah, if it was directed by David Lynch.
No, I'd go with like...
Clive Barker or something.
Yeah, like a Clive Barker.
It was like a Clive Barker dream cinema.
Dream sequence, yes. Yeah. Clive Barker dream cinema, yes.
I used to play bass for Clive Barker
dream cinema. What was the one? It doesn't matter. It doesn't Clive Barker dream cinema, yes.
Clive Barker dream cinema. So we were saying Clive Barker. Then, halfway through, as if... Because, okay, we have to kind of put this in context. In the movie, there is some question of whether John Cusack is sort of the center of everything or not, and whether like things are being pulled towards him or whether he's being pulled towards things. We'll expand on that in a minute, but I'm just setting something up.
Right.
Every time when we used to go to 42nd Street to watch Stranded or what was the Ice Vampires one?
With ice vampires?
Yeah, at the end of the world with ice, everything was frozen, and then they found out there was vampires in the thing with Fishburne.
Oh, there were vampires in that one?
Well,
the colony.
The colony. Yeah. They were eating people.
That's
they were sort of vampiric. It was sort of like 30 Days of Night meets Lawrence Fishburne. If that can be imagined. And when we went to see those, we would always be amazed. Bagman as well, which was funny. And also when we went to see Maggie, the Schwarzenegger one, there is always a bagman or bagwoman who, and they're not really, like, people need to understand, they're not hobos in the sense of you would see them lying by the side of the street, either drunk, drugged, and or just mad. They're like functional hobos.
Yeah,
they don't have like a home, but if they do have a home, it's probably filled with like 85 empty bags of cat litter and a whole bunch of left-handed shoes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it feels like that we've stumbled into like a deleted scene from The Fisher King or something, where you find out that homeless people they like to hang out in cinemas because if you turn up 10 minutes into a film that nobody wants to see,
the 12-year-olds running the theatre will let you in.
Yeah, they're not going to care.
Like,
she
didn't pay $15 to get into that movie.
No way.
She just shuffled in, and one guy looked at the other, went, "Shall we stop her?" and went, "Nah." And then went
what's
back
she going to see? Sell? No. Who cares? Anyone who sees that gets what they deserve. It's probably what they would think.
Right. So we
Which
spent
is harsh on Sal,
So 45 minutes of the movie was spent sort of upwind from someone who smelt like she had died in her clothes.
I couldn't put my finger on it for most of the. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. She was also a massive rustler. She rustled.
She did like to rustle.
And also Cane Man was rustling. What we're trying to say is, imagine a theatre in the 80s or early 90s, directed by Clive Barker, filled with the homeless from The Fisher King, watching John Cusack as the last ice cream man on earth. That's what we just went through. And I have to say that when I came out of the theatre, I was a bit like, okay, I'm changed, forever changed now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, Chief.
Do we want to talk about the movie?
We do want to talk about it. I had to set it up though, dude.
No, you're right. Because at least half of the entertainment of what was, in the end, quite a peculiar film.
It's a very peculiar
It's a very strange film.
And it's certainly a peculiar film when you consider Stephen King's sort of body of cinematic work, if that is even a phrase that can be used about his career. But like we were saying beforehand, right, when you're going to see a Stephen King movie, or certainly in the past, and this was true right up until like The Mist, really, when you went to see them, it didn't matter who directed them, who had written the screenplay, or who was starring in them. They just felt like Stephen King things. In fact, and I didn't like it, I only watched the first couple of episodes, but even The Dome, that awful TV show that was his, even that felt like Kingish, Stephen Kingish. Yeah. And the reason is, and what makes this particularly peculiar, is that even if the monster, like even if it's like Tommy Knockers and the monster is absolute balderdash, or even if it's like The Stand.
I couldn't finish the Tommy Knockers.
No, and even if it's The Stand, where like the last fucking sequence is God's big glowy green hand comes down to stop.
What if the hand of God came dressed him? Oh, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
How will we represent that?
Yeah, right.
What do you mean? I'm saying the actual hand of God. Right, but I understand what you're saying, but what would that be? A giant hand. You want to end my movie with a giant hand?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So, but even then, what you always had to hang your hat on in a King movie was an ensemble of characters who, whether they were thinly drawn or intricately drawn, were at least interesting to spend time with. Right?
Yes, that's true.
And what is most bonkers about The Cell, and what actually... Oh, sorry. That's... What is most bonkers about Cell, right, is that if Cusack and Samuel Jackson, like, had characters, they were like tissue paper thin, does not even begin to cover it.
Yes.
Also, while the action or the let's go here, let's do this beats were written in, clearly no one had bothered to write anything even resembling dialogue. And so every so often Cusack says some like disjointed, out of left field bohemian wank that clearly comes from deep within his Black Ramones t-shirt that he's worn for 18 movies, whether it fits his character or not. And it just felt like madly out of place. But anyway, why don't you set up the plot?
I think actually it'll end up being an interesting discussion about how is it a Stephen King film and how is it not a Stephen King film. Because actually I was watching it thinking, There's so many bits of other Stephen King films, and it's just like it's all been patched together.
Yeah, but there's also so many bits. Like one of the biggest mistakes about this is that the whole idea of human beings being taken over by something, whether it's...
Well, you're right, let me do the plot. Let me
do the plot and then I'll explain what I'm about.
Yeah. Okay, so the plot, which is pretty simple, is John Cusack's at an airport, cell phone runs out of batteries, while he's making a call on a payphone, something happens to all the people talking on their cell phones, and they go mad. Basically, they go rabid. They foam at the mouth and they start attacking each other. And anyone that's not caught in that initial signal is caught when they try and, because they don't know what's going on, they then call 911 or their family or whatever, and then it happens to them too.
Right.
So John Cusack runs downstairs, comes across a train which has got some people in it, including the train driver, who's Samuel L. Jackson, who've also survived.
And it's a subway, which is important because, of course, they can't use their phones down there. So
right. So Cusack and Jackson and another who gets killed wander out of the building back to Cusack's apartment, where there's another girl finds them, and they discover that all the people who've been affected by this, I think they call it the burst, right? That's what they start calling it.
The pulse.
The pulse, that's right, sorry, the pulse. Are behaving like birds. They're flocking, they're moving in, not packs, but like...
circles, like round and round in circles.
Yeah, but what do you... like flocks of birds.
He keeps saying, like, I'm not going out there with the flocking.
Yeah, I don't like this flocking. Not at all.
Yeah.
And so they make a run for it, which they do, and then along the way they meet some people that they've met die, and eventually the end happens, which I don't know what it was.
The end is bananas.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know what happened in the end, but that's basically it. So they end up wandering, as it were, through this post-pulse world, ostensibly, like in the first place, heading to Cusack's home to see if his wife and son are okay.
Right.
Where they find out the wife isn't, but the son might be. So then they go to another place. Oh, meanwhile, while this is happening, they become aware that all their dreams are being haunted by the same guy, who appears to be like running the whole thing.
And they're also like, basically, it's a road trip movie through a sort of zombie. They're not zombies.
Yeah,
but sort of zombie situation
that appears to be being run by somebody in their dreams, who's tempting them towards this place that only Cusack goes to at the end.
Right, but and then along the way, they meet people who then subsequently die in a set piece.
Yeah.
And
including Stacy Keach.
And find out like the next thing that the pulse-infected people are doing. So the pulse-infected people are learning, developing, changing, coordinating, and various traits within them keep changing. And there's, this dream guy, and then there's people they meet on the road, and that's sort of it for like the whole movie.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest downsides to the movie is that none of that, the pulse, the red hoodie guy, the message that he gets on his phone right at the beginning that's all scrambled, none of that is explored at all in any way.
I have to say, sitting here now and talking to you about it, I think, or I would be very surprised if the reason that it's spent... Because, okay, so let's talk about one thing as well. The biggest flaw in this film is it takes place at a very specific period of time where everybody in the world is on their cell phone. Because it couldn't happen. Because people, they wander around with their cell phones, but they're texting, or they're messaging, or they're emailing, but nobody's on
It's 4 years old, this movie.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's a point in human history where everybody's on their phone, and this came out after that had passed, so that's why it's already dated. Because you're thinking, well, but nobody's on the phone anymore. It doesn't happen. And also, why doesn't anybody own a television? Anyway, at no point is saying we'll turn on the telly or turn on the radio. Like, your standard, there's huge bits missing from the film. And the only thing I can think of is that the reason it's been sitting on the shelf for 4 years is a lack of money for reshoots or pickups, something. Because that final scene is like, that makes sense as a final 10 minutes of a movie. If there's a whole other 15-minute section before where you talk about, right, why is he in the town? Where's his kid? What's he doing? What's that big tower? Why are they all going around? Have you seen that bloke in the... And all that stuff that happens.
Well, the thing is...
But they go, oh, it was all the... You know, it's like dream
initially,
nonsense.
Okay, and this pulls up my other point, the point I was going to make before you explain the plot.
You feel like I got the plot across okay?
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. It's so irrelevant anyway, really.
Yeah, okay, very nice. By the way, this chili's fantastic.
I'm glad to hear it, dude. This egg and chips isn't bad either. So, one of the biggest problems is that not only have zombie films been done to death, right, but also films in which human beings get taken over by something.
Yeah.
And there are a few survivors, whether it's aliens in Invasion of the Body Snatchers or even the Faculty, or whether it's the Rage virus in 28 Days Later, or whatever it is, right? It's all been done to death. It's all been done to death,
yes.
Right? And
that's why. Sorry.
And so this movie or this story, and I haven't read the book, is literally like Stephen King when. What if it was exactly like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, except to add a bit of satire to it, let's make it their phones, because everyone's on their phones. And it's what you would call a grumpy old man.
It is, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's grumpy old man going, look at all these kids on their phones. Oh, I'm going to write a book all about how bad phones are, right? So...
I think
I think the reason why I liked it to begin with, or the fact that it wasn't going too deep into it to begin with, is because there really isn't anything more to say, right? So it can make, at the beginning, it could make certain leaps, right? Because how do you retread movies of like, oh, we're going to meet this guy, then we're going to go home to a hideout, then we're going to discuss this, then we're going to do that. It does all those beats, but it didn't have to like necessarily delve into any more than what's going on outside. Oh, that's going on outside. Right, let's go to the next place. Like, they had their forward momentum. I've got to go find my kid, right? Yeah. Which even right up until the end,
I was kind of interested by. No,
it's not that I was interested by it, but you can buy him carrying on.
Yes, okay,
right?
Yeah.
Because is it better to die certain or live the rest of whatever life you may have uncertain?
Yeah.
So I understood that, and they sold that enough, and I think Cusack sold that enough, and I think without Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson in this role, this would have been nothing, like absolutely nothing. Because the plus points to the film are Cusack and Jackson
definitely hold the film together.
First of all, they hold the film together. Second of all, they develop characters out of nothing. Like, you actually feel like you know Samuel L. Jackson's character, yet there is absolutely nothing in his dialogue apart from the fact that he was in Nam. There's nothing in his dialogue, nothing. It's purely in the way that he plays it.
You're right, it's a masterclass in pulling a character out of nothing.
Out of absolutely nothing. And Cusack is, tombstone-faced Cusack. Like, he may as well have been an old woman in a fright wig. Like, but at least that's engaging enough. And also what Cusack did very, very, very well, which I liked, was that all through the movie, right up until the very end, he maintained his regular schmo in a mad situation. As regular schmo as Cusack can get. We all understand Cusack was put here in a pod by alien people 40 years ago to be, stone glazed and crazy faced. I understand that. But what I mean by that is, there's at no point where he suddenly turns into an action man, or suddenly turns into a leader of men, or suddenly turns into anything other than what he is, which is a graphic novelist trying to get back to his kid. Even when he's shooting guns at people and stuff like that, it's sort of in a kind of terrified panic.
Yeah.
He may have only picked up one in a gun club 20 years ago
you're right.
type way.
Yeah.
Right. Jackson has the benefit of being like ex-military, so therefore like you can kind of buy him being a bit of a badass with a gun occasionally, which sort of is fine. But even he has vulnerable moments, and that works very well. So there's no point at which anyone becomes, Mad Max, Ash. Even in Shaun of the Dead, they suddenly all become fucking wizards with a weapon.
Yeah.
There's no real point where that happened, which was nice. And Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson do their characters well. And the last thing I would say about the movie is that while a lot of sequences do sadly fall into handheld-itis, which gets a bit annoying, there are genuinely some great shots.
Yeah.
The opening sequence is very, very effective.
I thought only partly. There were too many bits that were just...
With the budget they had, I thought it was very effective.
No, okay. Let me just say this, right? The thing that I thought... Okay, so...
But then you also have bits like there's a static shot at the side of a road and a mad ice cream van bumbles past and you can't help but chuckle.
There's a lot of that. So...
and scary chorus over a picture of two ducks.
It was like they did a thing which was obviously an insert of like the sky and the clouds like moving, the usual like clouds moving fast across the sky in an eerie fashion. And it was like dum dum, noise. And then there was a picture of like a cell tower, like dum dum, and then two ducks on a lake, dum dum, and then that was it. And then it was like cut to the next shot of them driving along, going, why are the ducks? But I kind of think whoever did that shot was a little bit taking the piss, maybe.
Of course, there was and the appearance. There was some
parts of that.
The appearance of Lloyd Kaufman at the beginning.
Yeah, that was weird.
No, but that kind of indicates to me that I wonder if, and I haven't looked it up and I'm not going to, but I wonder if this director didn't come out of trauma in some way. Because the only people who ever put Lloyd Kaufman in movies are people who came out of trauma.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there wasn't, like, in certain sequences,
a little bit of tongue in cheek.
A little bit of that. And what I was going to say about what made me like the opening sequence as much as I did was Cusack. Cusack running around and being like on the very edge of comedically scared.
Yeah,
was a joy to watch.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. But see, okay, so my problem with the opening sequence is actually my problem with the whole film, which is, you're right, the whole thing is a grumpy old man's complaint about too many people on cell phones. But the interesting part of it, I think, is Stephen King always has good ideas, right? Like, something weird happens and ordinary Americans have to deal with it. Like, that's his shtick.
Right.
And then how he explains why the weird things are happening are usually pretty crappy. And certainly the final solutions to his novels are always shit. At least the early ones. The ending to it is so bad. What I liked about this one was his explanations for what was going on was an extension of, his own like grumpy old manness, but looking at it with a bit more, like looking at his own reaction with a little bit of, I don't know. He was being. What I'm saying is, what was interesting about it was when they started talking about maybe like is this like the next evolution of the species where they're all one hive mind, and there's something there about.
Right, but that's been said of Brazil.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is that the interconnectedness of people, the ability to act as one. Now that can be, and this is why in the novel it's probably a bit more effective.
Right.
It's probably quite scary that nearly everybody in the world, right? And again, this is the problem with the low budget. But the idea of everybody in the world except you and your two grimy mates are all acting as one, right?
Right.
So wherever you go, one person sees you, like they all see you, and not only they all come running, but they all come, it's all like a big flock. And in a novel, to describe that as like it would be like one organism coming. Like I'm guessing in the novel when they come for them, it's not straggly. It's like one organism, one big, fast-moving.
Right, and just to quickly take it back to something we were talking about before the movie, but also not to get distracted by politics or the world, but a lot of people, I have, you have, Kim, other people that we know, have expressed this, like every time they open up Facebook, being just sort of overwhelmed by the negativity, by the news, by the world on them.
Yeah.
And it's in no way explored in this movie. It's really in no way explored in this movie. But it would have been effective to have sort of somehow worked the metaphor a little better. So that idea of all I do is open my phone and suddenly I'm engulfed by the world. Like I let the world in and the world just attacks you. It just bombards you all day.
And that's interesting.
Because there's two things about social media, right? There's one is the idea that we're all connected.
Right, although you're, weirdly, what you're doing is you're retrofitting the movie. Because of course when the movie's made, that's not happening on people's phones. They're only using them to talk.
Well, when the book was written.
Sorry, yeah.
The movie was made post 2008 because he mentions the crash, or the Wall Street crash.
Does he?
Yeah, when they're walking along, he said, "I lost all my money in 2008."
Oh yeah, okay. But still, I take your point, and it's a good one.
It's definitely worse now than it was 4 years ago. Like I'm definitely not like.
No, but I take your point. I take your point.
But what I'm saying is that in the weird thing that is in this movie, Stacey Keach says, if we all thought as one, there would be no competition, so therefore there would be no war, there would be no hunger, there would be no whatever, blah, 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 blah. But that's actually not what the film is saying. What the film is sort of saying is, or what is effective in the movie, if you take it as this metaphor, is this idea that because of the interconnectedness of society now, is that whereas you used to be able to sit in a cabin in the mountains and scratch yourself and shout, "Get off my lawn," to maybe the paper boy in a canoe who wandered into your backyard, now wherever you are, more or less, because they even say about they put this cell tower up in a remote part of Maine, and I'm sure King was sat on his back porch in Maine one night and saw a cell tower going up and went grumble,
no, that's
mumble.
it. I'm writing a novel about this.
You've got something on your chin.
Cheese? Chili?
Yeah, cheese, I think. But the idea you cannot shut the world out anymore, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's great. And I think what people are realizing is not just right now that the world is like a horrible, nasty place, but the fact that maybe the world has always been a horrible, nasty place. We're having the plight of groups that we wouldn't normally hear about or know about in so many numbers. We're confronting them now on a daily basis, rightly or wrongly, and so there is that aspect to what he's writing about that I'll give him kind of credit for and being prescient about it, but in no way is that examined in the movie. That's me extrapolating from the film.
But that's my problem, because all the interesting parts of the film are to do with that, the way the people are flocking together, those images, all that stuff. Anything that's a little bit original is really effective, but
none of it's explored.
No, but it's not even that. My problem is because it's low budget. What they think they have to do is they think they have to make it a zombie film. Thank you very much. That's very nice. They have to make it a zombie film. So all of the people do things that are straight out of The Walking Dead or 28 Days Later. In other words, stuff we've all seen before. So all of that idea, that metaphor, that the next evolution, or that they act like birds, and all that stuff gets lost under the fact that they're just on the run in a zombie apocalypse again.
Yeah, but also because he whips in this dream subconscious thing where you're
yeah, but that's classic, Ken. That's classic.
No, I know it is, but
but it makes no sense.
Cusack writes a graphic novel. In fact, at the beginning of the movie, we find out he may have sold it.
Yeah.
And in it, the lead character is this devilish creature, or character, or human being, that's basically Randall Flagg from The Stand, but with a red hoodie on.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
And one night, Cusack has a dream about it, and when he wakes up the next morning, there's a little bit of dialogue, and then it's suddenly revealed that everyone's dreamt of this red-hooded guy. And initially, Samuel L. Jackson is like, yeah, but he was on the wall of your apartment. But then they're like, yeah, but the kid saw him, and the kid wasn't in my apartment.
Actually, do you know what's interesting?
What?
That discussion never happened. It should have happened.
No, Samuel L. Jackson goes, you mean the drawing on the wall of your apartment?
Yeah. He says that, but he says that 2 scenes later, and they never mention about the kid.
No, he says that during the conversation that morning. When they all wake up.
When they talk about it, no, because that's what I'm saying. That's what's so weird about it. Cusack.
No, he did say it the moment they all woke up. I'm telling you.
What? Samuel L. Jackson said.
The painting was on the wall of the apartment.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't say anything about the kid.
Did he not?
No, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't explored at all. Like what you're saying, which is perfectly logical, because that would be like a spooky thing. You're going, well, I mean, of course I would dream of him. He was my guy. And someone would go, well, I guess I was in your apartment. I saw it. And the girl could have said, yeah, I saw it in your apartment too. And then they go, the kid never saw it. You'd be like, oh, spooky. Wait, but that never happened. That conversation never happened. So what's interesting is, like, you're such a connoisseur of film that you actually filled that scene in for them, even though it didn't exist. The whole thing was like that. Had missing scenes that could have made. But my biggest problem with it, deciding to turn the people in the film into zombies, whereas it was a bit, like they're all grimy and they're smelly and they're bloody and they're, they've got ripped cheeks and all that kind of stuff. And they just look like every other single, like, oh, they're not human anymore, zombie, that's it. As opposed to trying to turn them into a different species, which would have been, like, zombies is all about they used to be human and now they're something else, right? But this is more about, well, now they're behaving like another species. Are they still human? Like, that whole thing, if they were like, if they just let them be, like, because it all takes place in like a relatively short space of time, actually, like 4 or 5 days.
Right.
So you could still have had like relatively smart-looking people. Like, they pick up their phones and they take a call, right? And that's it. They don't have to like claw their own eyes out or anything. They could just be like relatively smart-looking people, relatively normal-looking people. Only now they're behaving like it's totally other different species, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like that thing. I think that whole go open the mouth and mad noise comes out. But because it's all zombie stuff, it doesn't hit you at any kind of level. It doesn't make you think. No. It just makes you feel like, oh, here I am again in this movie, which is okay if it's a zombie movie. We're trying to do something different. No, it needs to be something different.
Okay, it
could have been interesting.
And that's where I would applaud it, because no, it didn't do anything different in terms of plot or pacing, but it did have some sequences in it that were unlike anything I'd ever seen and filmed pretty well. I mean, the sequence where Samuel L. Jackson and John Cusack drive in a gas truck
that was fun. Right, that's what I'm saying.
Over the twitching bodies of... Because there's a really weird sequence where they go to this private boarding school in Massachusetts. Because it's all set in New England. They're all wandering through New England. And Stacey Keach is the headmaster, and there's the little blonde preppy kid who's all like, I'm the headmaster's pet. Who had no character whatsoever.
None of them did they really?
None of them did at all. Stacey Keach babbles something about, well, maybe they're becoming like the next evolution.
It was like written by Stephen King as well.
Right, well, co-written, yeah. But like there was nothing, like even in his babble, it wasn't, and it's no fault of Keach's, but it wasn't written like someone positing a theory.
Shit, is it Cash here? It's not Cash.
No, it's not.
Okay, sorry.
It wasn't written like someone positing a theory. It was just written like, we have to tell people that these people are evolving because somehow that's important.
Yeah,
even though it never actually is important. And my biggest problem with that whole sequence, which I rather enjoy, because there's Stacey Keach babbling away, and there's like there's a whole running track at the back of the school in which sort of hundreds of twitching bodies of the pulsees or the cell infected are lying there, and they've got that. It was, funny enough, again, it was a viral video about 3 or 4 years ago. It doesn't really sort of make any difference now, but it's that like la 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 that thing that Christoph Waltz impersonated, and it was an old German piece of 70s footage that was dug up, put on YouTube, and everyone laughed at it because instead of singing any words, he seems to be just going like tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-bum-bum, whatever. So all this is playing out of their phones and out of their mouths at the same time, while they're all like twitching in a kind of cool, unnerving way. And there's a great sequence where Keach goes down and like stabs one of them in the leg with his sword. And goes, look, they won't even wake up. And like, there was so much potential for his character to be less stern, and in fact, like less Stacy Keach, and more like Patrick McNee, like more kind of like a baffling old duffer would have been a much better. Look, I can prod them with my sword all night. Like that would have been a much better character. You know what I mean? Than if it was Keach. But it was fine. But then the next step they take is, well, of course, while they're all asleep, we could cover them in gasoline and kill them all, right? Which, this is either the first night or the second. It's the second night, right? So nobody really knows anything. Like you say, no one's turned on the radio, no one's turned on the TV. Everyone has simply hypothesized what's going on by observing their behavior, and they're all just going with it. Which is absolutely fine because it's keeping them alive, but it's not actually, like, no one's done any detective work. They've looked out the window and gone, oh look, they're flocking like birds. Oh, that must be a thing they do.
Yeah.
Next. Oh, what are they doing? Oh, they're lying down there twitching. It's almost like they're rebooting. Yeah, but are they? Have you done any actual, like, you're just telling us that, and we're, okay.
Yeah.
And the thing I mean is, the next thing they do is essentially mass murder. Like, it's made funny because they're swigging out this fancy crystal carafe and, like, driving around in this rusty old truck over brains and legs and stuff and sort of making jokes. But in a normal, let's say Cusack was, like, top of his game rather than here where he literally shown up just to look pale-faced and weird.
Where do you think this was filmed, by the way? I got a heavily Eastern European
Bulgaria, definitely. He makes all his movies in Bulgaria. I wouldn't be surprised if Cusack doesn't have a timeshare in Bulgaria at this point. But in a normal movie, there would have been some, and certainly in a Romero movie or any of those movies, there would have been some discussion. Heck, even in fucking an old Stephen King movie, there would have been some discussion of the ramifications of doing this. Because it's one thing to be being chased by a horde of crazy people and firing a gun at them as you run away. That's one thing that I can relate to. We're all in a panic, everything's gone crazy and blah, 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 blah. It's another to premeditatedly pour gasoline over hundreds of sleeping people and kill them. And while Cusack made some flippant remarks,
this is the next
night, the second one, yeah. I suddenly got paranoid, we won't record, we are. Cusack makes some, like, flippant offhand remark about it, but, like, there's no attempt at that point to...
No, you're right, it was odd.
Like, explain the sort of human reaction to that. Like, even, for all its odd third act, even Shaun of the Dead has that moment where, like, his mum's been bitten and he realizes too late and da-da-da, and there's, like, some emotional moment where they're like, I know what we have to do, but you have to understand the reality of this situation. Even in a comedy zombie movie, let's explore the reality of this. There was none of that. Cusack and Jackson, as well as they played their characters, went from one scene to the next as if they were going from aisle to aisle in the supermarket, going, should we get beans tonight? Yeah, let's get beans. Like, and it's such a shame because there are moments in it which shot really well. There's some genuinely, like...
There's some frightening moments too. When Cusack wakes up and walks over to the woman who's by the front door, and there's that... It's an old horror trick, but in this case it was a really good one because they hadn't done anything like it.
Right.
And he walks up behind her, and, like, the camera, switches to see him walk up behind her. And as it does, you see that there's, like, loads of people just waiting behind her.
Yeah, that was really well
done. And that made me proper jump.
Yeah. You know? And the bit at the end where he's up in his attic at his house. And
yeah, that was scary. Opening the door.
You think there's going to be a jump because he goes to open the door, but then there isn't. The handle comes off.
That was a good joke. That was a good joke.
And there was lots, like... The director actually has
the shot in the freezer.
The shot in the
phone
freezer
in the freezer.
Is amazing.
But you can tell right now, if this was like 98 and we were reading, like, and we had a copy of Empire, you know for a fact that the photo at the top of the, like, one paragraph, review, like 2.5 star review would be that picture. And I know that you, me and John would have cut out that tiny picture and, like, you know, blue tacked it to a wall. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it was awesome. It would make you want to watch the film, just that one shot.
The thing is about this movie is that...
that was never explained, P.S. Like, what the fuck was that about?
No, none of it was. Alright, so forgive me, listeners and listenerettes, but I do have to barge in and just remind everyone who's listening that I have a brand new album out. So go get Almost Naked by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, or listen to it on Spotify. That's Almost Naked by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures, which can be purchased at miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com, or listen to it on Spotify, and every time you stream it I earn 0.01 cent, which, believe you me, does add up to many cents. So please go do that. That would be absolutely fantastic. Don't forget, if you're listening to this, it means that you've already gone to the brand new After Movie Diner website, which is all very exciting, shiny and spangly. Now, that took me months to put together, and lots of time, lots of energy, lots of money and everything else to try and get all the content that I know you guys love front and center for you. So if you wish to support us and sponsor us, please go to aftermoviediner.com, and there is now a support us section. Click on that and it will give you all the details of how best to support the After Movie Diner and all our various endeavors. Until then, we'll continue to provide you all the groovy and fantastic entertainment that I know you all love for free. And if you feel so inclined, you can say thanks with a little contribution. And now back to the show.
But the first 45 minutes of the movie, I was so with it.
Yeah, me too.
It had so much goodwill for me.
It
really
did. Me too.
The opening sequence.
I tell you when it fell apart for me. I'll be interested to know when it fell apart for you. For me, it fell apart when they came across the balding psychopath with the moustache, only just holding on to reality. I thought, do we have to have another bald, mustachioed psychopath just about holding on to reality that you found in the middle of nowhere?
Again, who was that girl and her brother? Like, just a cipher for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, there was no...
Yeah, it was nothing. It was nothing.
And it actually lost me... although I still thought there was effective sequences after this. It actually lost me, like, when they rocked up on the bar. There was all these, like, interesting characters, and none of them did or said anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the sequence the next morning, considering how... I mean, yeah, it was a little shaky cam, but you can argue that the opening sequence was at least shot in wide angles and wide shots, so that you got the full breadth and scope of everything that was happening, right down to the fact that I even forgave them the shonky plane crash CGI, because I was wrapped up in it and I was enjoying Cusack's performance and his and running away.
And I am a sucker for really horribly disastrous things happening in the background,
right?
That then become much more disastrous unless people run away quickly enough.
Right.
I'm a sucker for that.
I was totally with it, and then. But I was enjoying the way, like, Jackson and Cusack were playing the roles. But then when I realised that none of the other characters in the whole movie were going to be written with any kind of think of all the characters in The Stand.
Yeah.
And even the most annoying ones in The Stand, you're still like, okay, this is at least an interesting character. And Samuel L. Jackson had the odd moment, like he was like, I don't like that flocking. Like, that was funny. There was some great moments. There was also a bizarre moment where he said no to the girl with a cigarette and then lit up a cigarette, which I didn't quite get, but okay.
Yeah, I think that was odd. I think it's because we didn't notice that she was because she looked, again, I think it's the problem with it being low budget. She looked, mid-20s, mid-20s, I would say, mid-20s. I think she was supposed to be a kid, like 15, 16. And so Jackson taking the cigarettes off her was supposed to be
you can't have
you're
one,
too young,
right?
Kind of a thing. But it was her, because they obviously couldn't, it cost a lot of money to, either get somebody who looks like a 15 or to actually get a 15-year-old. But she was like, she's available and in Bulgaria for the next 2 weeks, you know, one of those. But yeah, because I think she was supposed to be, the only time she really looked young, again, because it was all like, oh, everything's got to be fucking grimy. It's only been a day. You know, it's not like what we've been holed up here for 2 weeks and I've been living off, you know, half a baked bean a day. It's like, this happened half an hour ago and she looks like she's been, you know what I mean?
Well, she did stab her mother to death.
Yeah, but still, like, but it doesn't get any better than that. You know, so I'll have it, you know, get cleaned up, and then when she comes back, it's just as grimy as she was before. It's all grimy and straggly. The only time she looked young was when she was like that, which was quite an effective thing when they took her outside to die.
Yeah.
Like on the rock, and she was just like babbling nonsense at the sky, and then died. That was really nice.
Yeah.
But her hair was out of her face, and you could see she
the
was.
movie
You know,
was full of like really nice moments.
But I think
then it was also full of moments where he sat there inexplicably drawing her for hours, even though we'd already seen it and it was a completed image. It really bothered me how you saw an over the shoulder shot of Cusack's pencil drawing of her.
Yeah.
Clearly done. He was like slightly touching up the hair, and then throughout the next dialogue sequence before he showed it to her, he was still like scratching away at the paper with the pencil. I'm like, what? It's a finished picture.
And we didn't even see the finished
picture.
picture. Right? That was so weird. He hands over and goes, there you go, you know, for the angels, what bollocks it was, he said. And that was it. You go, you're not going to show us the picture now? Like, the editing was all, we're just missing shots. And the missing shots scuttled it, especially at the end, because it just went from, okay, you know, we're making some mistakes and there's quite a lot of cliches here and, you know, the zombie thing's getting pretty tired, to, well, none of this is making any sense. I'm John Cusack, I'm looking for my son. Right. I'm going to the town where he's supposed to be. Okay. We think it might be a trap set by the guy in my dreams. Right. Gotcha. So I'm going to turn up at the town. Right. There's a bunch of people trying to get into the truck. Okay. Who are they? Doesn't matter. We've driven past it. All right. Fine. And now I'm going to keep driving. Oh, there's a big cell phone tower. Okay. Oh, there's lots of people flocking around the cell phone tower. Like the birds flocking before, only like much, you know, lots more of them around the cell phone tower. That's
Which
kind of
I have
interesting.
to again say,
wait,
although the wide shots were CGI, the fact that close-up were actual people, I like that.
Yeah, no, it was lots of, you know, all the bird stuff was really big. Anyway, so there he is. He drives into town, past people, we don't care about them, fine, keep going. Okay, cell phone tower, brilliant. Lots of people like flocking around the cell phone tower like birds. If it's like some kind of magnet for them. Great, that's interesting. So what are you going to do now, John? I mean, you know, you probably want to check out what's. Oh no, you're just going to. Well, you're going to drive down now. Okay, you're going to drive down there. Fine. Well, what's your plan now? Are you're going to drive into the birds. Okay, that's a bit weird, but okay, fine. You're going to drive through the birds. Okay, you're going to drive through the birds. That's fine. You're going to drive up to the huge phone tower. Okay, fine. Or are you going to drive up to the tower? Fine. You're going to get out of the truck. Okay, you're going to get out of the truck. Oh, there's the guy in the red hoodie. That's handy, isn't it? Yep, you're going to shoot him. Fine. He's dead. Good. What's going to happen now, movie? I'm going to wander into the crowd. Okay, fine, you're going to wander into the crowd. Why? No reason. I'm going to go looking for my son. Okay, but your son could be literally anywhere on planet Earth, right? He may be, you know, around here, but if he's in the like, this is the town, is it? There's just a cell phone tower. That's the town. There aren't buildings or houses or schools.
It was a lake.
No, it's supposed to be a town because they've built a casino. There was an Indian casino there. There's clearly things there. It's not just a lake.
Right.
But he doesn't. He goes looking. Oh, better go look for my son in this crowd then. Okay, but there's literally thousands of them, and that's not a plan. And then soon enough, he discovers it's not a plan. He walks out. There's the guy in the red hoodie again. Oh well, that's it. It's all over then. My kid must be dead. There's the red hoodie guy. I'll, you know, press that thing that's supposed to be like how it's going to end the movie, which we knew was going to end the movie from, you know, 2 hours ago because of what the guy said. The end. Oh, it was all a dream. No, it's not a dream. This is a dream because really I'm dead. Oh, actually, I'm not dead. I'm a fucking. What? Yeah. None of that last 50 minutes made any sense at all. No. Nothing anybody did. He didn't behave like.
But I quite liked.
He behaved like somebody who didn't know where his son was and couldn't find his son.
Yeah.
And all it needed was that 5-10 minute sequence of between him arriving.
Had they called the movie John Cusack as the ice cream man at the end of the world, I would have. I would have loved it a lot more, because I like to believe that he is the.
And they could have called it the Ice Cream Man.
No, you've ruined
Ice Cream Man.
It's simple. John Cusack is the ice cream man at the end of the world.
No, but the I scream.
Yeah, I get it. I don't like it.
John Cusack is the Ice Cream Man.
And look, I love John Cusack, but someone needs to go up to him and go, listen, John, it's been a nice run. You've had a good run of it. Take off, for the love of Christ, the black jeans, the rock and roll t-shirt, and the long black coat. Take it off. You've been wearing it for 2 decades. It stinks. It's almost like Cusack sat there and he's like, so what's the role? And they're like, he's a nuclear scientist who discovers blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think he should also be into the Ramones, and I think he should wear a long black coat. Otherwise, I won't do your movie. You're like, you only have to pay me $500,000, but I do get to wear my own wardrobe. And what is that, John? All black. Yeah. All black.
Yeah.
Every movie.
John, I was surprised that you're worried about your hair. It looks a bit weird. Don't worry. I'll put on a beanie in the airport for no reason. Like it's a fucking
and
riot
wear it the
shield.
Rest of the movie.
But it was so, do you know what I mean? Wasn't it weird? It's like lying there in the airport going, okay, what are you going to do now, John? What are you going to do now? And slowly he takes out a hat, a beanie from his, and puts it on and goes, right, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready to escape. Now my hair won't give me away.
I think, okay, I like to imagine this. I like to imagine that he saw the dailies of him wandering around the airport looking for, with his mad, is it a wig? Is it hair plugs? Is it just that he's grown mad and he's grown old? What is with him? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's just a really bad dye job. I think it's a really bad dye job.
He's going the way of McCartney. You know how like McCartney just looks like an alien pupoid at this point? Or an old woman. Yeah. Cusack is the same thing. He's got old woman alien pupod syndrome. It's exactly what he looks like. And he has mad hair. He might as well have been in the opening sequence Doc fucking Brown. Only his hair was black. It looked like Doc Brown had a dye.
He was like the anti-Brown. He was like Doc Brown's got the white hair and the white coat. Yeah. And Cusack's got the black hair and the black coat.
Yeah. But he is. He's the antithesis of Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want a movie in which like Christopher Lloyd and John Cusack go head to head, and like Good Spy, White Spy, Black Spy, like the old Mad magazine. Anyway,
franchises have been built on laughs.
Got a plan for you, Hollywood, right? Doc Brown. We already like it. It's a proven entity. Next.
Mad Magazine. Nostalgia. People dig it. People like Mad Magazine. I like it. We can get Jack Black on board to executive produce.
Yeah. Spy versus Spy. All right. I like it. It didn't work.
Throwback. 90s throwback. 90s is very big right now.
Yeah, it didn't work for This Means War, but maybe if we cast someone more charismatic than a couple of planks of wood or whatever they cast in that movie.
Wait, what was This Means War?
It was fucking Witherspoon.
Oh, that was McG. That was a McG joint.
And fucking, what's his name? Pine. All of them look like they've just been pulled off the Thunderbird set and waxed and greased and shoved. They do, actually. Fucking Pine looks like Parker, Reese Witherspoon looks like Lady Penelope, and fucking Hardy looks like Troy or whatever. They all look like they've been dragged off the Thunderbird set.
They're right, they do look like
they're all like fucking no wrinkles, massive foreheaded, crazy. They're all grown on a farm in upstate Oregon, I'm sure. Bunch of people wandering around going, how are they?
Where are the Witherspoons coming? Oh, they're looking lovely. The Witherspoons are lovely this time of year.
Why are they from Dorset?
Because you can't just start a Witherspoon farm, right? You've got to import
Dorset.
You've got to import the skills, the brain trust.
Yeah. Oh, you've been growing Witherspoons now for 200 years.
Hardys come from Cornwall.
Yeah. Right? My grandfather grew Witherspoons. Really? My grandfather grew pines. Oh, well, pines are excellent.
Pine for the pines.
But yeah, no, so it's... The funny thing is I would recommend it.
It would be a good Netflix film.
Yeah.
It'd be good. You know what? So me and Teresa, right?
We try better than Anger of the Dead, and we sat through that.
We watch a double bill, right? And normally we end up watching the second one, usually around like 1 a.m. Right? That's when the second one goes on. So
I'd fall asleep if I started this at 1 a.m.
So that's my point. That's exactly my point.
By the time
it's finishing, like around 2:33 a.m., Teresa's asleep. Yeah. I'm really, really tired. I've quite enjoyed the John Cusack one because I'm sure I watched the Adrian Brody Sam Neill one. I'm sure it's bollocks. I enjoyed the hell out of it because it was dark.
No, and don't get me wrong.
And I think I would have enjoyed it.
I had so much goodwill for this movie. I really did, and I thought that even up until the end, with some of the shots of the crowd, even though it made no sense, even though it was literally like, well, let's give it 3 endings, none of them will make sense, but people will think they've seen something. Like, that's literally what it was, right? Because nothing was explained. The phenomena wasn't explained. The dream guy in the red hoodie wasn't explained. His son being there or not being there wasn't explained. Cusack being alive, dead, and or a cell zombie wasn't explained. It just was. But the way it was filmed, with like the ice cream van and the tower and the people,
the ice cream
I just loved it. Like I really loved it.
I did like the way,
and it didn't nod and wink at the camera. It was just like a bit cool. Like it was just. It made no sense, but it was a bit cool, and I kind of like.
Oh, when they're running when they're running away from the zombies, and Sarah just goes, right, fuck this, and turns around and just shoots them all. That was a really good moment. That was a really good moment.
And there was also like there was some really great shots. The shot where Cusack came out to go down to the bathroom, and he looked like death himself, like all black.
Oh yeah, that was spooky.
With the blue behind him.
Yeah, his nightmares. And when he said afterwards, he goes, no. The kid says, "Oh, I thought you didn't have nightmares when you grew up." And he goes, "No, you still have nightmares, but they grow up too."
Yeah.
And that was a really nice nod to, like, his nightmare about his wife giving the devil a blowjob in a bathroom was a bit like, yeah.
Was that his wife?
Yeah, that was the point. His wife was giving the devil, whatever, a blowjob in the bathroom. So that's why he's saying your nightmares grow up too. Like, yeah, I just had it. Like, I can't even talk to you, kid, about what my night was because it was like psychosexually freaky. See,
I knew when he said about nightmares, I knew at that point they'd all had the same dream.
Yeah,
like,
me too. Yeah.
But what I wanted was the girl to go, was yours the blowjob one? Like I wanted everyone to have the same dream. rather than the same guy in multiple different dream scenarios.
I wanted her to go, different guys.
Was that your wife?
Yeah. Was your wife blowing? Was your wife? Because if they're going, was your wife like a brunette? Yeah. Who was she blowing in your dream?
I wanted them all to have had the same thing. Yeah. It would have totally been like a Naked Gun moment. It would have taken me out of the movie. But that's what made me laugh in my head.
Yeah.
It's such a shame because.
And there was a good idea there. It was a good idea there of something could genuinely happen to everybody on their cell phones at the same time. The idea that everybody's so scared that the first thing they would do is use their cell phones to call for help, and therefore that would mop up the rest of them. That was a neat idea. And if that had turned them into like a new species, like genuinely, like not like oh, we're going to explain away. Like, no offense to George A. Romero, but let's face it. He started the trend of let's explain away the zombies with a really tenuous, satirical / we can't really be able to figure out what it might be.
But at least okay. 2 points. First of all, Romero's movies are not about where they came from. This one,
I know. I'm just saying he started.
No. But this one was because they had the road movie trope of this is all leading somewhere, and along the way we're going to get clues, and at the end of the movie we're going to explain it because this is a Stephen King film, and we shred mystery throughout like crumbs, and then at the end of it there's a sandwich, right?
Yeah. Well, usually it's a magical book.
It's a magical book or whatever, and I wasn't expecting the ending to be amazing, but what I'm saying is Romero doesn't do that. The point of Romero is, in fact.
No, I'm sorry, but
Romero doesn't need to explain them because the point of his zombies are not.
No, but I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is he started the trend of characters speculating on where the zombies come from without it really having any weight or meaning. And don't get me wrong, in Romero films it works because it's meant as metaphor. It's meant to underline like the terror and the otherworldliness and the end of daysness of it all, and it works.
No, but I'm saying
in this movie, when they talk about, oh, this must be the next step of evolution, it's like, yeah, all we need to do now with zombies, we need to come up with some like vague sounding thing that's a bit satirical and kind of means something but doesn't really, and then we can just move on, right? Whereas actually, which is doing disservice to the idea originally that, hey, what if all human beings all of a sudden did start acting as one because of this technology? That would be like a terrifying next step in evolution, and what would that mean to people being left behind, and what would that look like, and how would that be? And that's all the cool ideas in the movie come from that, grow from that idea. And all of the shit ideas in the movie come from Well, they're just zombies, right?
And
it's all just next evolution, whatever.
Right.
And that's what bugs me. I'm not saying that what Romero does is bad. What Romero does is very good. I'm just saying he's the one that started off the trend of we don't have to explain the zombies. With him, it doesn't matter, but with other people, it does. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I could debate that. I'm not going to. So, because I don't think his purpose is to.
I know it's
not explain them. Anyway.
I know it's not. But I'm saying that's what happened. It's like, look, we both know that one of the problems you have with people copying, like, you know, especially something that began a whole genre, right? When you copy it, that you take things from it, whether it's like film noir or horror.
But you miss the point, right?
Yeah, you don't take along with it what's effective. You only take the signposts.
The biggest problem with the biggest problem with the plot of this film is twofold. Firstly, it does the irritating thing of stringing some, albeit fairly feeble and confusing clues along the way, and doesn't pay it off.
No, it doesn't.
The second thing is that it takes the, at this point, so fucking hoary that it may as well be fucking down at a shitty dock blowing every sailor who comes into port cliche. That is the idea of the hive mind, and if we just kill the blokey at the top, whether he exists or not, we're not quite sure, everything would stop. Now, if you set that up, right, this hoary old fucking horrible cliche that we've all seen a bazillion times, really the only way to pay that off in any kind of horrific way, and it wouldn't be original or imaginative, but it would at least be something, would be to have Cusack make the pilgrimage, have the red cloaked man be real, explain away, whatever, have him detonate the tower, have him detonate the red hooded man, have him think he's succeeded, and then the end of the movie be that it was never going to be that simple, John, my boy. And that isn't, the whole hive mind theory was really just out of a book and isn't really the thing, and we're now all taken over by this thing, and maybe now that we've destroyed the tower, we can't fix it. Like, maybe keeping the tower alive was how we would fix it, and maybe now we can't. So, like, that would have been a nice twist on it. But, like, none of that happens either. So it had the cardinal sin of pretending like something was going on when actually nothing was going on, and actually introducing the I don't even understand the purpose, and I can only assume it's more mystical and bollocky in the book, but of introducing everyone seeing the red hooded man, and then having the crazy bald fellow with the mustache suddenly know about Cusack's son and Cusack, because at one point around the campfire he refers to the blonde kid that they brought from the private school as his son, which he isn't, but it would be an assumption you would make. Then when he out of nowhere gets out of the ice cream van, goes up the hill, is wired up to C4, tells Cusack, like, your son's going to be at this place, use this, blah, 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 blah. Like, there was no explanation how he knew all that either, but wasn't one of the cell zombies. So, like, that was really bonkers. And then the appearance of the red-hooded man and all their dreams had no, like, none of it was all just things to happen. Like, it wasn't going anywhere and didn't amount to anything. And that's the biggest. You could have either made the film a lot more simple, and mysterious, without a need to explain it, but in a way Romero does, make the metaphor enough and make it about the people who survive, and make it about, give Cusack a character and a personality and some decent lines. Give Samuel L. Jackson decent lines.
Sorry, you're right, because actually the thing about Romero is
it's about the people. It's not about
it doesn't matter whatever the wider thing is. It's about how do individual people react to crisis. You know, especially when there's no help, when there's no hope. How do they react? What do they do? And it could be anything. It could be everybody's nose fell off, and you know, and then they stick their fingers in their ears, and we all die, you know, or whatever. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
What matters is how do the people whose noses didn't fall off deal with that, and that's what's interesting, and that's where the film is. And then there's enough like scares and like funny jokes and little
Or
bits of
you have to
satire
do the
like
Stephen
that.
King thing of
You can
going,
explain what you're doing.
like for example, throughout the Stand miniseries, it's never explicitly said until the last mistaken act of the whole thing that Randall Flagg is like the devil. Right. Until like much, much later. And there's an interesting thing that can be played out with, and it's also played out in The Mist, which is another great example of King writing, where it's not about the ending, although people debate that back and forth, it's not about what the creatures are in The Mist or where they came from. It's about a bunch of people in a supermarket who are going to break off into fractions, and those fractions are going to represent certain turmoils that King sees in the world today, whether it's, you know, the stupidity of the Hicks or whether it's the rise of religious fascism or whatever it is. There are going to be explorations of characters within a horrific setting along with some set pieces, which is why The Mist is so effective. Whether you like the ending or not, you can't debate that the bit where they're all shot in the supermarket is effective, both on the character development side and the fact that are the creatures outside more scary or the people inside more scary? Like, that's a nice thing. Now, King has done that time and time and time again, and effectively, mostly to the point where we can all enjoy it up until a point. In this movie, there was none of that. No. There was literally.
You're right, it's a shocking, like, because even when King characters are, you know, one-dimensional, and frequently they are at least archetypes,
right?
You know, and it's usually like small-town, you know, good-hearted people.
Yeah.
You know, torn to pieces by some malevolent force is usually what it is. And they're always, you know, much of a muchness. And there's always like friendly old this bloke and friendly old that bloke. And it's all, you know, nice.
Like, you wonder what Darabont would have made of this. Like, if you had the same cast.
Well, I think Darabont would have certainly dialed back on the zombie thing, because I'm sure he would have had no desire to go down the zombie route after Walking Dead. So I think he would have dialed up the whole. But I think we're frustrated about different things, right? You're frustrated about the fact that it's not difficult to make a good genre movie when you have actors of the quality of Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. When
a
you've got
director
source
who clearly
material,
knows how to
a director knows what he's
shoot
doing. Exactly, a director who knows what he's doing. Enough money to get, you know, from A to Z and get your shots, just about, with a little bit of organisation, you know, maybe a little bit of creativity. And what I can only assume is relatively good source material. Like, I'm sure the book doesn't end that well, because Stephen King books never do, but I'm sure there's a lot going on in that, and I'm sure there are characters. And your frustration with it is, why couldn't you just knit that together into something that for 45 minutes I was genuinely enjoying? And it wouldn't have taken much. This is what I'm reading from you anyway. It wouldn't have taken much for you to do that.
No.
You know, just know a little more about what it is that you're doing, know a little better about like the genre that you're working in, and just like hit your marks, do your nice shots, and let's go.
It's what we found a lot with these. I wouldn't even know what to call them. They're
movies?
No. Well, they're like low budget, but they're Hollywood low budget. Like, they're not.
I know what you mean.
They're just like shot in Eastern Europe movies. Like,
it's
I
just
can't
straight to DVD. What you used to
movie.
call those straight to DVD movies.
And the problem with them is all the same, right? They have a script with maybe a name attached, or maybe two names attached, and they just race it into production.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, nobody sits down and goes, well, wait a minute, what does any of this mean, or why are we even doing it?
You're right.
Just like, yeah,
right.
but we've got Cusack,
it's like a first draft
we've
script.
got Samuel L. Jackson.
It just about hits the beats, but nothing's explored. There's no depth, and there's like, I mean, what frustrates me about it is how the idea at the bottom of it all has a lot of
Potential. It really does, and that bothers me as well.
But not just for the ideas, but for the shots and what it could have looked like. And I think you generally could have created like a new, like The Mist was like, something like about The Mist, it was a new kind of horror, right? Yes, you know, the tropes and stuff, but what they were scared of, yeah, it was a bit like Event Horizon-y, a bit, you know, like things from another dimension, but like ultimately, like the scale of them and the precision and all the rest of it was like, it was something new, and it was like freaky, you know, and the people in the supermarket were scared, and they had good reason to be because of like the unknown quality of this thing that was outside. And this could have been the same. It could have been creating a new kind of... Because I think that's the most difficult thing to do. That's why I give Joss Whedon so much credit in Firefly and Serenity. Because it's so difficult to create a new monster now. You know what I mean? And the Reavers are like a great monster. Like a really great monster. That's why Serenity is so good. Because it's a Reaver origin story more than anything else.
Right.
And they're a great monster. And that's not easy to do. And this,
but do you know why they're a great monster? The way the crew reacts. You see the crew.
Yeah.
The way it's set up that's so good is you see this crew, you see what they're capable of, you see that they work together, you see that they're strong fighters, scavengers, all the rest of it, right? You see they've got their shit down. The only thing in the verse that scares the shit out of them is Reavers.
Yeah.
So when you build up that and then you give, like, wait a minute, they're scared of this.
Yeah.
Before
So
you
scared they don't even move.
Before you see one, they're sold to you. Now, when you do see one, it's cool because they have like metal shit in their face and they're really like fucked up and everything's going, and that's awesome too. And they are a really great monster. And the descriptions, like he doesn't shy away from like what they do to you and how they leave you and all the rest of it. That's amazing. And I wanted to just say that. I didn't know where I was going with it.
I guess what I'm saying, the point about the Reavers is that you're right. The way they're made an effective monster is the way that your previously strong, capable characters react. But also, it's an idea of, well, what is human will, gone mad, right? What's the human mind? What's the human will like without any constraints? And that's interesting. And this would have been interesting because it's like, well, what if people did all work as if they were one mind and they did act like birds? Like how would that feel to not be a part of that and also be threatened by that? And I think it would only
Also,
have been a matter of just don't design them as if they're zombies. Don't play this like another zombie film.
And also don't necessarily have it like have everyone go crazy at the beginning, so maybe they're afraid of them. But like
wary of them a bit or something.
Whatever the ultimate purpose of them is, them being just blindly hostile doesn't really work.
No, you're right.
Like at one point...
Yeah, they're not curious, are they? They're never curious about, hey, what does this mean? What's going on?
Well, at one point he's like, oh, they've stopped killing and they've started recruiting. And we were meant to be like, oh my God, the fear has changed then. We should be scared of them turning into monsters rather than being attacked by monsters. But like, even that wasn't examined. It was just said in one line of dialogue in the middle of
and no one was ever under threat of it from that point onwards. There was never a moment in the film where one of the characters was like trying to push someone away, screaming into their ear, and oh my God, I'm under threat, turning into one. That never happens. It's like someone handed Samuel Jackson a gun, going, "This is a silver gun. You must only use it at the end of when it comes to a very important thing." He goes, "Okay, I won't use the silver gun," and then it's never mentioned again. But, like you say, there's obviously not a lot of money, and there's so little time.
What, the phone thing you're talking about?
No, I'm just talking about when you say to
the phone
group of people,
oh
my God, like they know if they scream into your, they're basically saying if they scream into your ear, they'll turn you into you. But then that never happens, and no one ever screams in their ear, and that's never a thing. So why waste time?
They did it with one guy in the bar. Oh, and that was...
No, but I'm saying
that was going to be
the conversation
my other
happened
point.
after the guy in the bar.
No, I get it. That was going to be my other point, was as good as he was with the opening sequence, there were a lot of fight and attack sequences later, most notoriously in the bar and then in the attic, where you couldn't see a blind thing that was going on.
No, you're right.
And he went from being able to orchestrate that pretty well to being bad at that.
Yeah.
And that really bothered me.
I think that, again, is a product of not enough shots and not enough time.
Right.
So there was a lot of that going on.
They were like, do we have any close-ups of Samuel L. Jackson? No. What do we have? This shaky footage where it could be a man in a stick and a hat.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as Spader and Reeves in The Watcher.
No.
But clearly, Spader, I mean, they've set the benchmark for, like, terrible reshoots. So as long as you can hit, above that, you don't even need to get Jackson and Cusack back. Presumably, you could just go to Seattle, right? Find anybody over 6 foot tall, put him in a black coat, do you know what I mean, and a beanie, and hey presto, Cusack. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be difficult to find yourself a Cusack.
Well, I don't know. No one's quite as bananas looking as Cusack.
He is very. He's
Except
he's
Cage.
turned into a very funny. He's him and Cage are
Are
starting to
becoming
look
one
like
person.
cousins.
But that's what happens when you solely work in Eastern Europe on
You think that's what
scripts
it is?
that
You
are
think they're still,
unfinished.
because you know what they look like?
They look like communists who lived their entire life eating borscht.
No,
is what
they look like cheapo Count Draculas from mid-90s movies is what they look like. You know, like really pale, drawn faces, mad dyed black hair, and a propensity for overacting.
But they also do look a bit communist.
They do look very good. You're
Like-
right, they have turned
Like
into
if you
Eastern
put
European.
him in like a grey concrete building and, I don't know, put a picture of Lenin behind him and he was just slumped in a
You're right,
corner.
they're turning into like the same person. That's so weird.
And they've been in a couple of movies. They were in Frozen Ground together, where in order to make them look different, Cusack looks identical because Cusack will not take off the black coat. But Cage like methods it up with like some thick glasses and a funny mustache. Because I think there's a really funny thing where Michael Palin and Eric Idle used to say that to get into character for like a sketch. It didn't really matter like how the sketch was written. They would go to the makeup department and be like, "Oh, this mustache is silly and this wig is silly, and we'll put on this crazy coat and whatever." And I kind of love that. And I think Cage has exactly the same approach to his film. They're like, "Yeah, but he is a physics professor who discovers the meaning of life." Yeah, but I think he would have a blonde mullet, and I think he would probably wear a lime green overall. What? Go with me on this.
Yeah. Look, I live in Bulgaria. All right. I've been wearing black for the past 6 months. I need to have a blonde mullet and a lime green overalls for this to happen. Otherwise, I will go mad.
I think that's probably what Cage does.
I think you're right.
But yeah, so it's a shame. It was very enjoyable for what it was, and there were moments of interest. But there is literally no excuse for not tying at least one of those things together.
I think your explanation is the best. I think it was rushed into production, and I don't know whether. I think it was Stephen King and somebody, which suggests to me that
It was.
So they probably took a script that Stephen King wrote and then rewrote it based on the budget they had and the locations
And
that they
Bulgaria.
had. And I think a lot of it got lost, and I think a lot of it probably wasn't filmed. I'm guessing.
Well, the book is
least-
big, I think.
Yeah, so I'm.
Isn't it? Isn't the book like
I think
big, chunky?
yeah. I mean, his books always are, but yes, I would.
Well, not
think,
all of them, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
But I think this one is as big as The Stand, I think.
It did look pretty hefty from my memory, but all I know is I think what happened is he wrote a script, it was then rewritten for the budget and the location, and they didn't, then they rushed it into production. Maybe the rewrite even happened like on the set, because it's bad. Like there's, every now and then, like someone says something interesting or makes an interesting point,
But then there's
but
always
it's out of nowhere.
there's always bits like there's also like the weirdest thing, weirder even than him driving an ice cream van full of through a circle of zombies to blow up the even weirder than that was when he goes to say goodbye to the kid and hugs him and he goes, "It's like Orpheus, you know,
Yeah.
Orpheus, he went down into the underworld to find his love." And then the kid goes, "Yeah, not Orpheus," and that was it. And I was like, okay, that is literally Cusack pulling a literary reference out of his butt, like on the last, like he's on set and he's like, "You've really got nothing for me in this script, like what do I say to the kid?" And the director's like, "I'm shooting already."
Yeah.
And Cusack's like, "Orpheus," because I'm a
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise
Like
me.
a
That wouldn't surprise me.
pretentious bohemian.
Or the guy writing the script put that in as a placeholder, you know, intending to punch it up later or make it make more sense later. Or it's a holdover from King's script where people had brought up Orpheus before. You know, remember Orpheus, kid, you know, or whatever, like, or Greek myths or something in their head. Master goes, "Oh, he loves Greek myths, you know, he's a big fan of fucking Greek myths." And then him saying, "Remember Orpheus, blah, blah, blah," that would have made sense. But because it pertains to nothing, he might as well have gone bingly bangly boo.
He
So,
could've-
say something to me before you leave forever. Bingly bangly boo, kid. Bingly bangly boo. And then try
Got the ice cream van.
Like, it makes no sense. He might as well have gone, you know, like, "Hey, don't leave. You know, Liverpool drew 3-3 with West Ham United in the 2001 FA Cup final. And then goes. They're
Yeah.
like, who cares?
You could have gone, remember Ian Botham, kid? He had a mustache and hit balls about.
You know, Freddie Flintoff's injuries really took their toll towards the end of his career. I'll be back. It was just, you're right, so much of it was, anything that came in that was like, sounded like it might be a bit of script.
Oh, and that was so Cusack when he goes, do you think Bob Dylan's a soul person? Like, that was a Cusack line.
Yeah. That was a good joke, calling them phonies, which would have been a Stephen King thing.
Right.
That would have been, it was like all the bits that worked, I'm guaranteed
And
were from the book.
what was the other bit? There was also a bit where he was like sat at the bar, and it was while, like, I get the joke about Ring My Bell, but it was a completely inappropriate song to be playing at that
was
point.
weird.
Like, it needed to be, it needed to be like some mad song from the 50s.
My guess is they had something in mind and they couldn't afford it.
Right.
And it would have suited the mood a lot better, because I think it was supposed to be like a downbeat, bluesy mood, you know, like, I don't know, I mean, anything would have done.
But no, so he sat there, and he was sat at the bar, like, none of the people you're introduced to, the woman, like, the older woman has a slight thing where she's flirty to younger men, but even that's left up in the air. It's like there's no
there's nothing there.
paid off.
There's nothing there.
There's a weird guy with, like, incredibly dyed black hair, might have even been a wig, with a fucking
voice thing. And
voice
that
box.
goes nowhere.
That goes nowhere.
An English bloke running the bar in the middle of nowhere goes nowhere.
I joke about English food, which again is so fucking hackneyed, and also just at this point incorrect, because English food fucking beats the pants off American food.
Yeah.
So
We're going to leave it there. Lingering English resentment at jokes about our food. Yeah? You want to leave it
which
there?
were even old when Kramer used to do it in fucking... Not Kramer.
Frasier?
Yeah, it was even old when Frasier used to
This
do
used to
it.
piss me off whenever they make fun of the English with people with like the worst English accents on the planet. You go, come on, you're filming this in LA. I know for a fact there are people out there who can do English accents. So what? Only because the one person they hired in that show, who was actually English, did the world's worst Manchester accent ever.
Yeah.
I can't even watch her in the show. It's so bad now.
Yeah. But no, so...
Well, let's leave it there. I think we should leave the discussion of Sal on my final point that Daphne's accent in Frasier was unconvincing. In summary, Daphne's accent was unconvincing.
Yeah.
Put that on the poster.
Yeah.
Stephen King.
Kelsey, and the less said about Kelsey Grammer's forehead, the better. With that kind of explains the cell, almost to a nutshell.
Yeah.
Or a nutcell. Well, thanks again, Jim. It's always
Well, thanks very much for having me. That was fun.
Blah, 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 blah. Picnics.
That's what the first script was like. I bet there were bits in the script.
No,
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm telling you, this movie should have been retitled John Cusack is the Last Ice Cream Man. No,
The Last Ice Cream Man is great.
No, the Ice Cream Man at the end of the world.
Ice Cream Man in the one. I quite like The Last Ice Cream Man.
The Last Ice Cream
The
Man.
Last Ice Cream Man.
Yeah,
It's nice. It's got a certain poetry to it.
It is.
John Cusack is
the Last
Ice
Ice Cream Man. They wouldn't buy in China.
I wouldn't know.
No.